Hi, Erin. Welcome to the School of Balance. It's really great to speak to you today.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, I was wondering maybe you could start by telling us, everybody listening, a little bit more about yourself. I mean, I obviously know you, but the others won't do, so it'd be great to hear a bit more about you.
Okay, well, I live in Colorado, so in the US, and I actually grew up in New Mexico, so it's about like 6.5 hour drive. But I graduated from New Mexico University. I'm sorry. I graduated in Las Cruces from New Mexico State University with a Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology, Exercise Science. I was originally wanting to do physical therapy. And then, I don't know, just kind of while I was working in the field of physical therapy and doing personal training, I kept, for some reason, it just seemed every time in my life, no matter what I was doing, I was always working with the population of women who are pregnant or wanting to get pregnant. That was pretty consistent trend for me. I started working at the Buckley Air Force Base another year, was doing personal training there for the military, and they had me do this talk called Bundles for Babies. And it was about exercise and pregnancy, but when I was looking at the presentation, I saw more of what does exercise do for the mom? And I thought, okay, well, this is not really new information. And I just then had a question of, well, what happens to the baby? So I started doing my own research, and it was like my eyes were open for the first time in my life because I had found so much information on lifestyle and I, at the time was just exercise, but I started delving into more about what actually happens to the developing baby during that time. And I thought, why is no one talking about this? How is this not happening? So then I got into a research committee with the Center for Disease Control here in Colorado, and it was all on preconception health and trying to get the awareness out to men and women on why is it important to be healthy before pregnancy. And then I started a master's in public health, and then I found a master's in human nutrition and functional medicine. So I stopped the master's in public health and switched it over to human nutrition and functional medicine because that seemed to fit more of what my interests were. Functional medicine is looking at not mostly your traditional medicine finds, okay, if someone has diabetes or if they have anything, asthma, allergies, whatever it is, it doesn't just stop at the diagnoses. It looks at, okay, here's the diagnoses. Now, what happened in your life? What's your life story that got you here? And trying to find the balance. So so I guess almost to where you're almost working backwards of, okay, how did this all start? What brought you here? And I thought that really fit well with what I'm passionate about with development, with human development, just during that 9 months of our lives and how that impacts our health into adulthood. And so that's why I changed it over to that. And during the past few years, it was really, I couldn't find anything out there besides in the medical field on all that happens to us during that time. And I thought, well, there's no position exists for me to tell people about this. So that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to start my own business, and it's Imprinted Legacy. And I'm going to teach people how that moment of our lives, that 9 months, is so crucial to our health into adulthood, and that can be passed down into future generations. So that's kind of how the birth of my company, if you will, all came to be.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you. And I guess that really, I just found that incredible when we started talking about it. I was very aware that you shouldn't drink and smoke during pregnancy. You should eat well. You should try and do some exercise. But when we were talking, you were explaining that there's that actually proves that the environment and the lifestyle of the parents impact the health of the baby throughout its entire life and the way its genes operate, and potentially even into future generations. Now, that just blew my mind, and I think you touched on it a little bit there, but could you tell us a little bit more about the research? Why do we not know about this stuff?
Yeah, I think you know that's the part where all of this has just been. It's funny when the more I do the more I keep researching, I find that this has been around for up to about 26 years. But even in the past 12 years, there's just been so many strides in the research, and why it's not in the public eye, I guess that's where part of my passion came through of why isn't it out there? And not that doctors don't have time. I think oftentimes there's just so much they have to talk to couples or just women about, with their health during pregnancy that sometimes I think it's just the piece that isn't always connected, or sometimes it's trying to be a filler in there. But why it's not out there, I don't know why more hasn't been out, but I've been noticing there's been books. One of my favorite books is called Origins. That went out a few, even on some websites, I found some information on why doing certain things during pregnancy is important, but there's still not enough out there. But checking a little bit onto the research, our bodies, they respond to our environments through epigenetic changes. And what that means is, I can explain that. So this happens when a methyl group, which is a carbon atom that's attached to three hydrogen atoms, that attaches to specific sites on our genes. Now, so this process is actually referred to DNA methylation. So when DNA methylation occurs, it actually alters the gene activation and expression. So it doesn't change the gene itself. What it does is either it's actually turning it off or on, or making a gene express quieter or louder. So that methylation actually takes place as a response to our ever-changing environments. When I say environment, it's our body's environment, what kind of stress we're under, what kind of food we're feeding ourselves, just the air that we're breathing if we're around high polluted areas. That's how our body responds to our environments. And these epigenetic changes, they have been shown to be heritable and being passed down through generations. Now, some you might be thinking, okay, are we actually witnessing evolution and how it comes into play? The answer is not exactly, because evolution is more the change in DNA, but epigenetics is just more of the response to the environment.
Right.
So I guess technically, if you're looking at science-wise, if these changes are consistent generation after generation after generation after generation, then I guess, looking at that could be a change in DNA at some point down the road. However, that's not necessarily, that would then not be considered epigenetics anymore. But with some of the research, one of the fascinating studies going into men's health was that sons of men who smoked prior to puberty, they had an increased chance of obesity. And then, and of course, along with other health conditions associated with obesity. And then another study done in northern Sweden, it showed that granddaughters and grandsons lived a shorter life if their grandfathers and grandmothers actually, if they went through normal eating and then through a gluttonous period during times of, the winter harvest, if there was an overabundance in food. But then the lifespans of those whose grandparents, pretty consistent with their eating, they didn't have the shorter lifespan. That's just due to diet and just due to how we're eating. So those are pretty interesting things that I have found. But during the time of pregnancy, the part that, not that I'm only focused on that, but during the time of pregnancy, our mothers pretty much are sending little physiological messages to the developing baby on the perceived world outside of the womb. So therefore, you're trying to send messages of how to develop optimally to the world outside to survive. So even things such as stress, and stress, it could be anything. With exercise is considered a stress on the body, but it's a different stress. How your body responds to exercise is very different than responding to a traumatic situation. But if a mother's stressed during pregnancy, negative or positive, that actually affects the wiring of your baby's brain. And how does it need to respond? So for instance, if you're in a bad situation, high stressful pregnancy, your child is more likely going to be more prone to being stressed or more responsive to stress. And not that these things can't be changed, but that's good to know, at least, so then okay, then that might be something we would have to work on with our child when they're born, just kind of different stress management skills a little earlier. Malnutrition, whether that be underweight or overweight, just not eating the right nutrients, then that's also associated for your developing baby to have a higher chance of having heart disease into adulthood. dental hygiene as well. Many women don't realize how important it is to take care of your teeth and getting checkups even while you're pregnant, because if hormones can play a lot onto our bodies. So you can have, gum disease or anything happening, and that bacteria can actually make your child prone to having dental issues as adults as well. And even just the foundation of our immune system, having allergies, asthma, that is developed during pregnancy. So research has even shown just having probiotics and prebiotics in your body during pregnancy helps your child's immune system be developed, more sturdy foundation, or vitamin D and asthma and allergies as well. So that's how it all comes into play. And I just felt that it's so important to have this information out there, that I just felt someone needs to share more information to the world. So that all the research, there's just so much out there, but it could be too much for somebody. It could be too overwhelming. So
Yeah, no, I mean, I may be slightly geeky, but I find it extremely fascinating, and I think it's really important that all this research has been done. But at the same time, like you say, it could be a bit overwhelming. Now, if a woman was trying to conceive at the moment, what are the main things they should take into account? How do we make this research real? What's most important thing to stop it being too overwhelming?
I think just, always paying attention to your body and how you feel. Just, if stress is something that's going on, and then realizing, okay, maybe I need to have new stress management techniques, or maybe I need to create different boundaries. That's always important no matter what. And stress plays a big role on our hormones. So that could make it harder to conceive as well. So that's always a key thing: stress management, nutrition, getting your nutrition from real food. And when I say real food, just the less packaged foods you have, the better, because your body knows what to do with it. But if you're, not, I'm definitely not going to say don't ever eat something that's packaged, because I mean, we're human, right? And I do that too, but limit that as much as you can, and knowing that supplements are exactly that, supplements. So your body's going to get way more out of fruits and vegetables and proteins just from real sources than anything else. Staying physically active with something that you enjoy. So you don't have to be an athlete or train like an athlete to be healthy by any means, but doing something that you like, going for walks, or if you like running or hiking or jogging or swimming, or even if it's playing tennis or something, always just being physically active. It's good for yourself too, even just with our memories. Exercise helps a lot with that as well, and our quality of sleep. And not, if you're wanting to just overall be healthy, I know here in the US it might be the same over there, but there's always this thing about the number, the weight, the number on the scale. And oftentimes that just adds too much pressure on something. Health is not necessarily measured by a number on a scale. And I think just knowing where you are and being happy where you are with your health, and just, maybe even focusing on how can I be healthier for me, because all that will translate over when you are pregnant as well.
No, that's great. That sounds like, just real simple steps that I suppose we all know we should do. But if we're, seriously trying for a baby, there's that added incentive, isn't there? Um,
Yeah, and oftentimes people think I have to do more or I have to do less because I'm trying to get pregnant. And really, it's, you don't have to do more, necessarily more of something. It's finding that balance, of just being healthy and feeling good and feeling vibrant, because we all hit that at different places with our health.
mhm.
And I think that, yeah, just sometimes we almost make it more complicated.
No, I can understand that. So you mentioned previously around probiotics during pregnancy. Should they also be taken whilst trying to conceive, or just once you're pregnant?
That is good to even take while you're trying to conceive. Probiotics are great even just for our gut health, and they even help us with our immune systems as well, just us as adults. So it's important anyway. You can take them in a pill form, but then you can also get them. You get more benefits from the food as well. So if you like yogurt or just different fermented types of food, prebiotics you'll find in like honey and bananas. Those things actually, the prebiotics actually feed the bacteria for the probiotics. So it's good to have them both together. But yeah, have them before pregnancy, even. It's good either way. But definitely also make sure you include them during pregnancy because that'll help your baby as well.
Okay, great. And is that best in some sort of supplement form as opposed to getting the sort of little yogurt drinks that have added probiotics that you might see in the supermarket?
I've taken the pill form before myself and the food form, but it's just going back to when you take it in the food form or the drinks, you end up getting other nutrients as well. For instance, if it is a yogurt drink, you're not just getting probiotics, but you're getting protein as well, and you're getting calcium as well. So that's why I tend to go more for, I'm not saying don't take the supplemental pill because, some people can't really handle dairy too well. It's better to have it than not at all. But if you're going to get more bang for your buck, technically, I guess, then I would definitely go for a food form of it.
Brilliant. And I guess especially if the yogurt doesn't contain loads of sugar or artificial sweeteners as well.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Thank you. So we've talked a little bit about women during conception. Should men be doing similar things? They need to do the same things, different things? I think there's not, I've not heard much for sure about what men should do during conception, maybe around fertility, but not so much around the health of the baby. But you've talked a lot about genetics, and they're obviously 50% of the genetics. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's important for men to also be healthy. You're right. There's less information out there for men, but I'm coming across more now, and it seems like the research on men's health for the health of the baby is getting more tapped into now. But you're right. They're 50% of it. So nutrition is a big key again, and it's because okay, well, let me back up a little bit. So for them, their contribution obviously coming from the sperm, but if they're if they're drinking a lot of alcohol or, recreational drugs or cigarettes, whatever it might be, that does increase oxidative stress. And what that does, oxidative stress is a series of reactions in which the toxic oxygen metabolites, so pretty much the substances or the byproducts of the oxygen metabolism, they damage actual cell structure and function. And, and that changes, and that happens with all our cells. But with nutrition, because sperm is so small, having antioxidants, that helps protect the sperm against the oxidative stress caused from the lifestyle. So that's where nutrition comes into play a lot. Managing health conditions as well. I actually came across the research about 2 weeks ago how type 1 diabetes in men actually can be has a direct impact on their children having type 1 diabetes. Now there's research on women in type 2 diabetes, and that increases their children's susceptibility to type 2 diabetes. But for men, if they have unmanaged type 1 diabetes, it increases their chances of their child to have type 1 diabetes as well. And then even with weight, of course, women's weight is also an indicator of their baby with their weight as well. Having weight, if there's increased chances of being overweight as adults as well, but that has been shown in men's health contributing to the baby as well. And autism, that was an interesting find that I didn't realize was out there. I was actually really surprised that autism, due to men, if they're overweight, autism can be one of the indicators that's linked to the father's health. And I didn't know that. And I was actually very fascinated about that.
No, wow, that's incredible. So should they be doing exactly the same things that you went through that the women should do? Or is there certain things that men should eat differently because of...
I would say doing the same thing because it all comes back down to just having that balance of health again. Being physically active, that's healthy as well. And stress, actually, that was another thing. Stress can also, if a man is, if he's very stressed prior to conception, that has an impact on their baby as well. And it really comes down to, it's not fully gender specific at that time. It's men and women just being a human, that those are things that need for just optimal health for yourself that does get translated down to your baby to be. But when it gets more specific into men what men should do and what women should do, that changes more into when the woman's pregnant, because then there's, well, men's kind of, they're not pregnant, but now it's up to the woman, because they're giving the rest of the messages for, okay, here's your foundation from your mom and your dad, from the sperm and the egg, and after that, here's the rest of the information for how to develop in this, how to be optimally developed to be in this world outside of the womb.
Got it. So let's assume then the couple have had a lifestyle in line with what you've been talking about during conception. They've tried to reduce their stress, improve their eating, get moving. What should they consider during pregnancy? I guess you've touched on the fact that it's more important for the woman, but is there things the man can do as well?
Yeah, for the man, it would definitely be, I think, communication with your partner. Just letting them know through. I've talked to a few husbands before, and even some boyfriends, and they're kind of like, I see, my loved one, they're going through all these changes and their emotions are different, and sometimes I don't know how to help them, and then we're all here, the woman say, well, he's so nice, my husband's, cleaning or doing the dishes, and I'm mad because I want to, but I can't, and, it's hard because you're both going through something very new. But I think for the man, at least letting your loved one know, this is how you can help me or be there for me, and knowing if my hormones are a little bit different, so I might be a little bit more emotional, whether that's being, I cry and I'm not sure why, or I'm mad, I'm not quite sure why, letting them know, like, you're also going through this uncertainty as well of what's happening just as much as they are. And I think just working together, and, for the husband, letting them know, like, if you're going to go through a time where your energy's lower, and letting them know, if my energy's really low, let's think of a game plan for that. At least we go walking for 5 minutes every Monday night or every Sunday, whatever it might be. And then that way they know how to help you. And then it doesn't come this little battle of, I'm not sure how to help them, but I want to help them. And then the wife feeling like, well, he's trying to help me, but it's too much or it's not enough, whatever it might be. But I think for the minute, letting them know how they can be there for you is a big thing.
And in terms of lifestyle, very similar during pregnancy as conception?
Yes, lifestyle, yes. So, sometimes women fear, can I go swimming, or can I do certain exercises? Is it safe? And it really is safe. And it's actually really good too. Being physically active during pregnancy does help with your baby's heart and developing. You pretty much everything that your body's responding when it comes to exercise, the baby's body does too. So their lung development is actually increased. Their oxygen uptake is able to be increased. Their heart rates, their wiring of their brains, there's more neurological development happening during that time. And so babies of mothers who have exercised have shown to have higher IQs. But being active, and not saying, if you're a runner, you can still run. Of course, there's going to be a certain time where you might have to change that a little bit. But stay active. Don't, unless you're considered a high risk pregnancy, definitely follow your doctor's orders. If you need to choose lighter activities, or, back down on a few things, but pay attention to your body on that. With food, cravings tend to be a big thing, right? But pay attention to what are those cravings triggered by? Is it an emotion that you're feeling, or is it part of your routine? If you're used to having a certain dessert or snack at a certain time of day, then you're probably going to start noticing cravings during that time. But pay attention to where the cravings are coming from. And knowing, yes, you're developing a baby, but you're not necessarily eating for two, because they're a lot smaller than two adults. So there's actually not so it's that eating for two kind of thing, but knowing that you don't have to completely change everything that you do. You can eat fish. Omega-3s are very healthy for you and the baby. You want to stay away from where the wild caught, so you don't want to have like shark and swordfish, but tilapia is fine, salmon's fine. If you have tuna, you want to try to stay away from it, the canned one, just because of the high amount of mercury that tends to be in the canned tuna. But and shellfish, you want to stay away from shellfish, but you can have fish. There's things that you can still have. And then going back to the stress topic, you're going to have different stressors now because your body's going through all these changes. even if it's your second or third, it's a little different every time, and so just allowing knowing that, okay, my body's going through all these different changes and it's going to feel a little bit new, and that's okay. And weight, I know, I've had a few conversations with women, even if, if they had started off overweight and their doctors don't want them to gain any weight. And so then they're then worried about gaining weight as a whole, again, don't focus so much on the weight itself, but more of, am I just doing what's healthy? And if I'm gaining weight, I did an article on my website about where the weight is actually coming from, and it kind of breaks all that down. But that seems to be something that women stress about a lot too. Even if they know they're supposed to gain weight, there's a growing baby, weight is a worry, because all of a sudden your clothes aren't fitting, right? And it's, you go through a few weeks and it's fine, and then boom, now you don't fit in your clothes again, and it's a new way of gaining weight. It's not what we're used to if we've gained weight before. But going back to, even if it's before pregnancy, you don't have to change too much while you're pregnant to stay healthy for you and the baby.
Brilliant. I'll include a link to the article when I put the interview up so people can have a read, because I think that's really interesting, the breakdown. So you touched on there, if you're already overweight or already stressed, if a couple are considering trying for a baby, or they're actually pregnant, but they're worried about their existing lifestyle, in terms of it's quite a long way from the lifestyle you're talking about, what would you recommend in terms of getting started? What's the most important thing to start with?
Most important thing, I would say, I feel like there's not the one best, and that's something that many physicians have even asked, what's the one best thing we can tell people? And I feel that's different for everybody. So how I'm going to answer that is, the one best place to start is pick one thing, just one, whatever you feel is the easiest change you can make, whether that be one more glass of water in the day versus having juice or a soda or something high sugary. If that's where it starts, that's where it starts. And try that for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then build on one more thing. Okay, so I went through 2 weeks of just one more glass of water. Maybe I'll add a salad every day. And the reason why I'm saying that is because then you start to layer on lifestyle habits, and they're going to be very beneficial for you and the baby no matter what, right? And all we can ever do is the best we can. That's all we can ever do. And if that's where the best is, then that is great, because that is one step closer and one step better to that lifestyle that you want and you're trying to build for your family. That's one step closer. And as you build on those different lifestyles, it makes it easier, because you're not feeling like you have to make this entire change with your life when you're already going through one very big change. Just starting off very small. If it's exercise, I don't care if you're starting at 2 minutes a day of just walking around your house. That is fine, because we all have to start somewhere. But make it easy, make it fun. If it has to do with stress, then maybe it's going with your partner and having a play kind of day. Play. We as adults, we don't play anymore, so do something fun. But just start small and just work on layering things one at a time when you're ready. But make them very easy, very realistic, because you can always, if it's the water and you just wanted to get one more glass a day, okay, so you got that glass or half a glass a day, whatever it is, but you can always do more if you feel you can, right? But if you make it something very small, very realistic, then it's easier to do and you become more successful. So as you make these changes, they become easier, because you're at least being consistently successful with those goals that you put for yourself.
No, that sounds like a really good advice for anyone wanting to improve their health, but especially if you're pregnant or trying to get pregnant. So flipping it around slightly, what advice would you have for women if they were struggling with issues such as fertility and miscarriage?
With that, I would look at there. I've talked to other health professionals too. A lot of things go back to diet. It could be, even for some people, it could be if they're underweight or overweight. If we don't have enough body fat, we don't have a cycle, right? And so it's kind of the body's way of doing what it needs
Hmm.
to keep one thing that it can. It's all about survival. If you are high stressed, you will find, just as anything else out there, really, you'll find just as much information on how much stress can affect a miscarriage or fertility versus not. Now, in my personal opinion, just based on what I've learned and even my own experiences, no one can tell me that stress does not have an impact on fertility or miscarriages.
Hmm.
I've talked to enough people, who've gone through it and looking at just their story, and oftentimes stress will play a big role into it. And if you're under a lot of stress, if your immune system goes down, your hormones get thrown off, your weight changes, all these things happen. And if your body is built to survive, and if it cannot keep two life sources alive, it's not going to. It's you're the primary body that it's trying to take survive. So that's going to end up coming into play. Lights on at night. Many people don't know that, but if you have lights on at night watching TV or any lights on in the house, that actually affects the melatonin secretion, and that affects reproductive hormones. So if there's lights on at night, turn those off. That's for if you're having fertility issues, not miscarriage, but for fertility issues.
Wow, I had
Nutrition
no
always
idea.
important. Yeah, yeah, many people don't. I think I did oh no, I had a post on like 10 questions that I had been asked, some top 10 questions, and there was something in there. But yes, melatonin actually does have an effect on your reproductive hormones. So when you have the lights on at night, you're still getting light coming in. So then you're not having as much of the melatonin secretion. So it doesn't know, you throw your your clock off thinking, okay, is it night yet or is it not night? What's really happening? So yeah, that'll throw it off.
Yeah, no, because I was aware for the impact on sleep, but I wouldn't have had a clue for fertility. That's very interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it's because the play on the hormones. So it's pretty interesting. Sometimes it's one of those small little things. If you're having trouble even with fertility, tracking your cycles when you're ovulating, sometimes you'll even find that there could be something going on with your hormones, or or your thyroid. Something could be playing into that, and there's a way to track it and to kind of see where you are. And actually, I know this is kind of off topic, but one of my best friends, she ended up having postpartum depression really bad. And I helped her with the nutrition. That helped a little bit, but something was just still not right. Well, when we looked back, she tracked her cycles before pregnancy and she did again after. And when we looked at it, it was like, why didn't even we look here first? But tracking her progesterone levels were off even before pregnancy, because it took her a while to get pregnant. And so this is just her story, so not saying this is the case for everyone. But so she didn't have enough progesterone before pregnancy. So then after having the baby, after delivering, there was even less. And then there was issues even after her delivery. So her adrenal glands were very exhausted. So basically, she wasn't having enough progesterone in her body. So instead of her doctors wanting to give her medications, if they looked at that cycle, they could have just given her progesterone injections, and she wouldn't have had experienced postpartum depression in the first place. So kind of interesting, but going back, so if you're tracking your cycles, that can give you a lot of insight to your body and what's going on, and if anything's off or things are right on track.
Great. No, that's fascinating. Around,
Sorry, I know I kind of cut off and went in a whole other direction, but
No, no, that's great. It's really interesting to see that, that I've heard of tracking in terms of using that for fertility, but I've never thought of that as being useful also, once the baby's born, and using it to help with other elements. And I'd never realised that postnatal depression could affect you in that way if you had issues, say, with progesterone or something. So no, that's really interesting.
yeah, yeah. And I think just for women, it would be helpful to know, again, your body is going through this whole other experience, and you don't always know what to expect. And like I said before, even if you're having your third baby, talk to any woman, it's not exactly the same, but it's good to know. And our bodies change, as we get older, our bodies change. So if it was a progesterone issue, maybe that wasn't an issue for the first baby, the second baby, but who knows? Just because your body's changing, whatever you're going through, whatever it might be, could be the case for the third. You just never know.
No, that's
But yeah, tracking your cycles is a very good insight to for us as females to know what's going on, what's going on with our bodies. And thyroid conditions have actually been able to be diagnosed just based on that alone as well, hypo or hyper. So
Well, no, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you. If other people are as fascinated as I am, where can we find out more? You know, you mentioned your company, so where can we find you, and what services do you offer?
so my website is www.imprintedlegacy.com. So that's IMPRINTED and that's right now I do about weekly blog posts. And right now I'm just offering the consultations, whether it be through phone or Skype. That's what I'm doing right now. And I'm working on a do-it-yourself program. So for women and men, actually, I'm also developing information for men too. But if people feel, well, I'm at a good place, they don't really need the extra help from Erin, then they can go through the do-it-yourself. A lot of my education is not just, oh, let's put an exercise program or let's get a diet plan or let's work on stress management. It's not just that. I'll educate on why it's helpful for you and what it also does to the baby. So you're learning about your baby's health as well, and a different side of the development into your baby's life too. So
Oh, that's great. I'll include the links on the blog when it goes live, when we pop the interview up.
okay.
Brilliant. Well, just before we finish up then, if we could just I tend to finish off with a quick fire round just so we can get to know a little bit more about you. So if it's all right, we'll go straight into that.
Yeah.
Awesome. So number one, first question, what's your favourite vegetable?
Oh, I'd say bell peppers, the red and yellow and orange ones. They're sweeter and usually they're a really quick go-to vegetable for me because I'll eat them like apples if I'm in a hurry. So that's my favorite.
Great snack. How about the last book you read?
Oh, Wicked by Gregory Maguire. I actually just finished that. I loved it.
Wonderful. And your favourite relaxing or restorative activity?
It is lying down by my fireplace and watching movies. I know that's not like do exercise for de-stressing, but no, it helps me just kind of escape my own mind. So watching movies by the fire.
Oh, no, that sounds lovely, especially on a wintry night.
Yes.
How about the one online blog or podcast you'd recommend other than your own?
You know, honestly, you would know this one, but jillfit.com, because that's actually the first Jill Fit was actually the very first website that I've gone to for like blog posts and just everyday lifestyle, health and just all of that. It's always been Jill, which is very funny. No, I guess funny in the way that I haven't ventured into a whole lot of others, but she's been kind of the staple over the year. But now I'm venturing out into more. So maybe next time we talk, I'll have a few others, I'll have a few others for you.
Oh, that's great. And finally, your favourite treat, food or drink?
Oh man. Okay. So my my older brother, he makes this. It's called sweet rice. And there's different variations of it, but he actually makes it better than my grandma. And if he makes it better than my grandma, then it's awesome. But it's actually just white rice and it has condensed milk, evaporated milk, a little bit of sugar as if it needed more, right? But a little bit of sugar and cinnamon and vanilla. And it is amazing. I absolutely love it.
Wow, that
It
sounds
is.
like rice pudding on on
Yeah, yeah,
steroids. Yeah.
yeah. It's very similar to the rice pudding, and I just love it so much. Every year for my birthday, when he asks me what I want, I always say I want sweet rice. It's definitely not something I should eat every day, so thank goodness I don't make it as good as him.
No, it sounds great as a birthday treat, though. Well, it's been so
Yeah.
wonderful to speak to you and find out more. It's absolutely fascinating. So thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah, thank you for your time. This is really exciting for me. So thank you.
Wonderful. We'll speak to you soon. Thanks, Erin.
Thank you.